Good evening and welcome to the virtual public meeting for the Tampa Palms Boulevard Complete Streets project from Ebensburg Drive to Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about the project and provide feedback. I would now like to introduce Mr. Cal Hardy, Capital Projects Manager with the City of Tampa.
Good evening. Welcome to the virtual public meeting for the Tampa Palms Boulevard Complete Streets project from Ebensburg Drive to Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about the project and to provide feedback to us. My name is Cal Hardy. I am the Capital Projects Manager for the Mobility Department for the City of Tampa. With me tonight, we have Ben Money, the City of Tampa Project Manager for this project, the FDOT Project Manager, Kevin Lee, as well as other FDOT, City of Tampa, and consultant staff. Please note that all attendees will remain in listen-only mode throughout the meeting. We ask that you type any questions you have into the question box that appears on the right side of your screen. In just a few minutes, we will begin the presentation that provides an overview of the project. We have provided a PDF of the presentation that can be downloaded to your computer during the webinar. You can find it under Handouts on the menu to the right of your screen. Also found in that section are comment forms that you can download for later use. Following the presentation, we will answer questions that have been submitted through the question box. A moderator will read each question aloud and it will be directed to the appropriate team member to address. We will do our best to answer each question. If your question is not answered here, please reach out to us by phone or email after the meeting. If you are listening to this webinar by phone without access to a computer and would like to ask a question or make a comment, please contact us by phone or email. The contact information will be provided later in the webinar. We also will send a follow-up email to everyone who registered for the webinar with the contact information for the project. Now, before we begin, we have Councilman Vieira in attendance. I would like to give him an opportunity to say a few words. We can't hear you yet. No.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now.
There you go. Hey, how are you, everybody? Louis Vieira, Tampa City Councilman for the new and North Tampa area. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight. We just did the budget hearing right now, and we actually passed the budget that includes $3 million, over $3 million of repaving for Tampa Palms Boulevard. I always want to thank the administration for their collaborative leadership in getting this done. You know, it's funny because just a few weeks ago, this was not in the budget. The $3 million for Tampa Palms repaving was not in the budget, but so many residents and constituents from Tampa Palms Boulevard area and Tampa Palms came together to lobby to get this in the budget, and we were able to flip it. And so I wanted to thank everybody for that. That's a really big budget win, because you don't see turnovers like that in such a short time. So I think and I always encourage folks to send in a letter of thanks to City Council and to Mayor Jane Castor. But we're here to talk about a separate issue, which is going to be design of Tampa Palms Boulevard. I've gotten a lot of messages and a lot of calls and whatnot on proposed redesigns for Tampa Palms Boulevard. As the good folks over at the City of Tampa Mobility Department, who are really hardworking public servants, and it's always a pleasure to work with them, are going to tell you there's a couple of prospective plans that are out there. That includes plans for a road with a bike lane, as well as continuing to have two roads prospectively with either reduced or no bike lane in order to address concerns with regards to speeding. There's been a lot of concerns out there regarding different issues. I've had a lot of people contact me expressing concerns regarding prospectively taking away a road. Again, that is an option. And then there have been some people who have been supportive of that. I'll tell y'all my position at this time, which is, you know, for me, the prospect of taking away a road off Tampa Palms Boulevard seems to be something of a stretch. But I'm certainly here to listen and going to hear out all the different options, et cetera, et cetera. And in the end, I'm going to fight for what is best for Tampa Palms and what I feel like a majority of the folks who are going to be there are affected want. So again, this comes out of something that is a real big budget victory for New Tampa and Tampa Palms, $3 million in repaving funds. This was, to give y'all some history very briefly, this was in the budget from All for Transportation, but then when the Supreme Court cut out the penny sales tax, this was taken away. And I had promised Tampa Palms that if the Supreme Court struck down All for Transportation, that I would work really hard to get it in the budget, and we got it just in time. So I really thank everybody for being here tonight. Let's listen and let's see what the options are. And again, and we're going to come down to something that promotes safety for Tampa Palms, that continues to have mobility and access for what is a growing area in the Tampa Palms area. So thank you very much, Cal, and thank you everybody for listening to my meandering speech. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So can y'all hear me? Just want to, yeah, I believe I can. I do want to just address a few things that he said and kind of reiterate them. This project was planned, before we get to the presentation, this project was planned as far as a fiscal year 20 surtax project. Now, at that point, we didn't have any concepts or anything like that, but because the surtax was new, we did plan it, we did get it approved through the Independent Oversight Committee, and basically we were saying that we were going to fund design and construction of whatever project would be the Tampa Palms Boulevard project, because we knew that there were safety and maintenance needs on that corridor. With the Supreme Court decision, or the Supreme Court case held up, we did not move it forward with the, we did not move forward with a lot of the projects in that fiscal year 20 surtax plan, but we did go ahead and move forward with the preliminary engineering and design, or preliminary engineering concepts for this project. So what you're hearing tonight is the beginning of our public input for the preliminary engineering. This is not the final design. This is basically our first stab at what we think is possible based off of some of the feedback that we initially received at various public District 6 meeting or District 7 meetings and New Tampa resident meetings, and then also some from complaints that we received through our customer service center and things like that. So this is just the beginning of the dialogue. We hope that we get some more dialogue from the residents and more feedback on the concepts that we have developed. And with that, we can begin the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for taking your time to join this virtual meeting and learn about this Complete Streets project. Before we begin, we would like to provide some important information about participating in this webinar for those attending using their computer, tablet, or smartphone. First, we'll access the control panel on GoToWebinar. On your desktop, you should have a small toolbar with a few buttons to the right of your screen. Simply click on the orange arrow at the top to expand the toolbar. On your mobile device, simply tap the screen to display the same options. This displays the control panel, enabling you to ask a question or download project files. To download project files, simply click on a file within the list when viewing in desktop. When viewing in mobile, click on the document icon. This will display the list of files to download, including a comment form if you'd like to submit a comment by mail at a later date, as well as the project fact sheet and a PDF of this presentation. For those calling in, you may request these documents by calling or emailing the City of Tampa project manager. His contact information will be provided later in the presentation. Finally, to ask a question at any time throughout the presentation, please type the question into the field marked Questions at the bottom of the desktop menu. From your mobile device, simply click on the question mark and enter your question at the bottom of the page that opens. For those calling in, contact information to reach the City of Tampa project manager to ask questions and provide comments will be provided later in the presentation. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 states that no person shall, on the basis of his or her race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance pursuant to the requirements of Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The mayor and city council value diversity and welcomes input from all interested parties. Moreover, the city does not tolerate discrimination in any of its federally assisted programs, services, or activities. The City of Tampa will not exclude participation in, deny the benefits of, or subject to discrimination anyone on the grounds of race, color, and national origin. Any person wishing to make a complaint can do so by contacting the city's Office of Human Rights. Thank you again for taking your time to join this virtual meeting and learn about this complete streets project on Tampa Palms Boulevard from Ebensburg Drive to Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. The project manager for the City of Tampa is Mr. Ben Money. The project manager for the Florida Department of Transportation is Mr. Kevin Lee. Also here this evening are various members of the City of Tampa and Florida Department of Transportation staff. We will begin by discussing the project overview and key features of this project. A complete street project creates context-sensitive transportation networks that integrates people and places into the decision-making process. Complete streets prioritize safety and connectivity while designing based on a community and its needs. As mentioned, the project is located along Tampa Palms Boulevard, beginning at Ebensburg Drive and pauses at the Bruce B. Downs Boulevard southern intersection. The project then continues from the Bruce B. Downs Boulevard southern intersection to the Bruce B. Downs northern intersection. The portion of Tampa Palms Boulevard east of Ebensburg Drive to Bruce B. Downs Boulevard was previously resurfaced in 2012 and is not included in this project. Through previous public engagement and corridor evaluation, the project team understands the following neighborhood concerns: excessive speeding and the need for traffic calming, the need for safer intersections for drivers and pedestrians, better pedestrian access and more frequent crossings, accommodations for the pickup and drop-off queuing for the schools, and rehabilitation of the poor pavement conditions. The existing corridor's roadway is in poor condition with significant cracking and depressions. The high seasonal groundwater significantly impacts the existing roadway base, resulting in many of these issues. There are also areas of drainage issues in specific areas along this corridor. Existing sidewalks have areas of major cracking and uplifting from tree roots, resulting in tripping hazards. The existing posted speed limit ranges from 35 to 40 miles per hour, with 20-mile-per-hour school zones adjacent to Lawton Childs and Tampa Palms elementary schools. Based on a recent traffic study, the average driving speed within the corridor is 47 miles per hour and 43 miles per hour within the school zones. Given the conditions of the existing roadway infrastructure and average high traveling speeds, this complete streets project will serve to significantly improve the life of the corridor and utilize traffic calming techniques to slow down vehicles. We will now begin discussing specific complete streets improvements that could be part of this project. The Tampa Palms Boulevard Complete Streets project will provide safety enhancements and traffic calming through techniques that could include right sizing of the existing roadway to better serve the surrounding neighborhoods, providing buffered bicycle lanes to provide enhanced multimodal access and traffic calming, adding enhanced crossings at frequent locations for safe pedestrian use, adding school queuing lanes to safely serve the needs of the local schools, and constructing roundabouts to provide safer intersections that operate efficiently. What is right sizing? Right sizing is the process of reallocating pavement and right-of-way space to better serve the context of the roadway and goals of the community. Tampa Palms Boulevard has more space dedicated to through vehicle traffic than is needed based upon the existing traffic volume. Right sizing would create a safer street and could allow for other modes. As previously mentioned, roundabouts are being considered in this study as a possible solution to enhance safety and operations. Roundabouts reduce the number of vehicle conflict points, increase awareness for drivers, reduce travel speeds, and establish one-directional travel. The latest studies have shown significant reductions in accidents when utilizing roundabouts. These studies have shown 37% reduction overall, 75% reduction in injury collisions, 90% reduction in fatality collisions, and 40% reduction in pedestrian crashes. Roundabouts are safer for pedestrians and bicyclists and increase traffic operations, all at a lower cost of construction compared to the alternative intersection designs. Although roundabouts will be considered at a future time, roundabouts at both intersections of Tampa Palms Boulevard and Compton Drive have been evaluated as part of this study. The exhibit shown here is from a previous intersection study, which converted a four-way stop configuration into a single-lane roundabout. This design is proven to significantly increase the operations and safety of this intersection. A compact roundabout was evaluated as part of this study at the southern intersection of Compton Drive. This compact roundabout also greatly enhances the traffic operations and increases safety by reducing the roadway width required for pedestrians to cross the road. This roundabout is adjacent to Tampa Palms Elementary School and has been designed to accommodate larger bus vehicle traffic. With significant U-turn traffic at this intersection, a roundabout will allow for easy turning movements during pickup and drop-off hours. Tampa Palms Boulevard is currently a four-lane divided facility with no bicycle lanes and a landscape median. A 6-foot sidewalk and 8-foot shared use path is provided alongside the roadway. The displayed map shows the locations of the two proposed typical sections within the project limits, shown in yellow and red. Yellow represents the first typical section, and red represents the second typical section. These typical sections are adjacent to both elementary schools. The first typical section will repurpose the road from 4 lanes to 2 lanes and include buffered bicycle lanes. The buffer between the vehicles and bicyclists will include alternative delineators to enhance safety for cyclists. The existing sidewalks and shared use paths will remain with improvements made as needed. Painted pavement will be utilized on the buffered bicycle lanes to further distinguish its purpose and provide aesthetics throughout the corridor. The existing posted speed will be reduced to 35 miles per hour and made consistent throughout the entire corridor. The second typical section adjacent to the elementary schools will similarly repurpose the road from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. The circulating road approaching the elementary schools will have a designated school queue lane to allow residents to drop off their children at the schools during the appropriate drop-off and pickup times. This lane will be separated by a flexible delineator to ensure efficient and safe operations during school hours. Outside of school hours, the school queue lane will be used for bicyclists. Bicycle ramps will be provided prior to school queue lanes to direct bicyclists to a new 10-foot wide shared use path. The circulating road on the other side of the median, away from the school zone, will follow the same typical as the first typical section with a buffered bicycle lane. The existing posted speed will also be reduced to 35 miles per hour to ensure consistency throughout the corridor. Rectangular rapid flashing beacon, or RRFB, crossings will be provided at the following 5 locations: Amberley Drive west of Bruce B. Downs Boulevard, Amberley Drive east of Bruce B. Downs Boulevard, Treeland Court, Tampa Palms Trail, and Compton Drive northern intersection. These locations are based on recent traffic studies identifying the areas with the highest volume of pedestrian crossings. RRFBs allow pedestrians to alert oncoming vehicles prior to crossing the road, allowing for safe passage. We are currently in the data collection and analysis portion of this project. After public input is provided, the comments and suggestions will be included in the finalized report that is anticipated to be completed in January 2022. We welcome your questions and comments, and there are several ways that you can get involved in this project. You can provide a comment in the question window during this virtual public meeting. You can also download a comment form to your computer and send it back to the address shown on the form. You may also contact the City of Tampa Project Manager Ben Money directly by email at ben.money@tampagov.net or by phone at 813-274-8514. Thank you for attending this virtual public meeting. Please contact us with any questions or comments. We'll now answer any questions you have provided. Please feel free to continue to ask any questions in the question box to the left of your screen.
Okay, let me go ahead and show you all a few things. So that was our presentation, and I wanted to reiterate a few things before we get into the question and answers. So I talked about how this project was programmed for transportation surtax in fiscal year 20. Excuse me. We made the decision to prioritize the feasibility study and concept development. That's where we are now. This project has not been programmed or funded. So as of right now, the roundabouts, the lane diet, any changes to the existing trail or sidewalk, that stuff it has not yet been funded. And I'll get into what has been funded in a minute. Basically, right now, this is our preliminary input phase. So through our previous discussions with the neighborhood and through CSCs that we've answered, our customer service center requests, enforcement requests, and our own speed studies, we realize that there is a need for traffic calming and there's speeding along the corridors. The fact that you cannot always enforce speed limits, and it makes us look for other means of controlling speeds through better design. So with that in mind, we developed a concept to take out a travel lane. The travel lane, there are other ways that we could do traffic calming. First, the traffic calming could be done with narrower lane sizes. And that's just simply narrowing the lanes to 10 feet. And then doing something for the long stretch that basically you have a smaller lane. That will not be as nearly as effective as actually removal of a travel lane. So that's just something to consider. This was not a removal of travel lane specifically for a bike lane. This is a removal of travel lane that would also accommodate a multimodal bike lane as well. So tonight's meeting is the start of our public input phase. This is just the beginning. So we will go through this phase before we finalize the report. And we really wanted to get y'all's feedback on what you thought about the concept, because we know it's a big change. We do want to hear from you. In addition to asking questions, what I would challenge y'all to do is let us know what you think the primary issue what's your primary concern with the corridor, and what do you think needs to be fixed? Because I would like to hear from that. So if you can also, in your questions, if you can add that, what your primary concern and what you want us to fix with this project, please let us know on that, because that actually will help us inform the design as well. So in addition to talking about, or with the lane dye, I wanted to kind of touch on what candidates are actually good candidates for a road dye. I saw some traffic numbers out there that were a little off. Traffic numbers in excess of like 12,000 vehicles. Sorry, 12,000 vehicles, average annual daily traffic. The actual traffic volumes that we have on this roadway for segment 1, which is Bruce Beach. Actually, I'm sorry. This is actually flipped around. Segment 1 should be Bruce Beach Downs to Bruce Beach Downs. That's the kind of south. How do I want to say it? Southeasternly loop right there. That's actually the one on the bottom. These are mislabeled, so I apologize for that. But that's the 3,455 in 2020. 2023 volumes, that's the opening year. We're looking at about 3,560, and in 2040, 4,216. Now, one thing to consider on this roadway is that it's a loop. It's almost kind of like a cul-de-sac in a way, because you're really going from intersection of Bruce Beach Downs to intersection of Bruce Beach Downs. And the land that is available for development has already been developed for the most part. You're not expecting any through traffic to increase on this roadway. So largely, you're pretty much set as far as your traffic volumes. When we look at road dye candidates, we often go by the guidance of the FHWA. When we look at those, the less than 10,000 AADT is a great candidate for a road dye. When you get into 10 to 15,000, that's when it becomes a good candidate. But generally, at those volumes, 10 to 15,000, we basically just need to conduct some intersection analysis and consider signal retiming. So basically, those are minor changes at the intersections. One other thing to consider is that at intersections, we're not proposing any changes at the intersections of Bruce Beach Downs. Those will remain the same lanes that you have today will remain there after the project. So I know we saw some concerns about taking lanes out at Bruce Beach Downs. That's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at is the link between the nodes. The intersections are nodes. You want to keep those wide. Those are kind of like they have a really outsized effect on intersection or on capacity, roadway capacity. So you want to keep those wide, but the lengths, the roadway between intersections, that's where you want to look at narrowing. So that's what we're proposing, something along those lines. Segment 2, which is Evansburg to Bruce Beach Downs, they actually have a higher AADT. Like I said, these are flipped around, but their AADT is 9515 in current year. In 2023, 9804, and 2040 is 11,611. That's average annual daily traffic. That's how many vehicles or trips you can expect on the roadway at each day. So even though in 2040, they're projected to have 11,611, that still is within the good candidate for road diet within that range. As far as pedestrian safety, and in addition to enhanced crosswalks, RFPs, things like that, I did want to touch on a few things that of how the road dye can actually achieve better results for traffic calming or for pedestrian safety. The first thing is realizing the effect that speed plays and the deadliness of the crash. If a person is hit by a car going 20 miles per hour, they have a 90% chance of surviving. If a person is hit by a car going 30 miles per hour, they have a 60% chance of surviving. If a person is hit by a car going 40 miles per hour, they have a 20% chance of surviving. So speed is the #1 contributing factor to pedestrian deaths. So if we're able to traffic calm the roadway, we're able to reduce the likelihood that someone will die on that roadway. There's also something that we call multiple threat crashes. At intersections, or at pedestrian crossings, there's often times where a car will obscure a pedestrian who's crossing the road. So if you look at the figure here, car A is stopped for a pedestrian. Car B does not see that pedestrian. The pedestrian does not see car B. So they don't realize that car A is stopped for any reason. They keep on going, and that leads to something that we call a multiple threat crash. So with a lane dieted portion, you remove that threat. If we were to not do an actual road lane diet, I did want to address something that we have seen in the comments already about how we can utilize the existing pavement. Now, we could do something where we narrow the travel lanes to 10 feet. If we were to narrow those travel lanes, we would still not be able to provide a bike lane. I think that was thrown out there to match what we've already done on the north western section there between Evansburg and Bruce B. Downs, this project right here. We do not have enough space. We have about 22 feet for the majority of the portion of the roadway. We do have some areas where it's 24 feet or more, but the minimum width of a bike lane is 4 feet. So we can't get 2 10-foot lanes in 4 feet. If we were to do something without removing a travel lane, we would look at narrowing the lanes and actually just reutilizing that space as like a paved shoulder. But it would not have the same traffic calming effect as lane narrowing. So as this kind of shows you what we're proposing here, and I just kind of wanted to show you all again. If you add this up, 11 feet plus 2 feet plus 2 feet plus 7 feet, that's only 22 feet of pavement. And I just kind of wanted to show you the fact that that's what we have, and that's what we're working with right there. One other thing to add to that is the bike lanes. I know we have a trail in this section, and I know that trail is heavily utilized. If we do provide safer bike lanes that people actually want to use, it will draw some cyclist traffic off the trail. So that will actually increase the amount of room for people who strollers, joggers, things like that. If we provide a safe place for cyclists to actually use where they feel safe, then that will kind of give you a little bit more room on that trail. Okay, so the last slide I wanted to show you all is just what we're planning with our fiscal year 22 resurfacing project. This is the project that Councilman Vieira had mentioned before that they were able to get into the budget. Now, we're looking at using our American Recovery Plan funds for this, and we are looking to redo the segment between Bruce B. Downs and Bruce B. Downs. So it's only the segment that's in blue. Unfortunately, this roadway has a very bad pavement index. It has not lived up to the service life that it was supposed to live up to. And that's largely due to the type of base y'all have out there, which is a soil cement base. So our remediation strategy for this is something where we would actually go in and basically churn up all the pavement and everything underneath and do something called a full depth reclamation. It's a pretty expansive process where we actually churn it up, put it back down, and then put a brand new pavement surface on top of it. It will completely rejuvenate the pavement. You won't have the same problems that you have now. They won't continue to occur. So it's a complete fix. And we are planning on doing this portion in fiscal year 22. Now, with that said, we're like I said, we're going through the preliminary engineering design right now. This is the concepts that we're looking at, but we want to have public input to know what y'all actually want to see out there. So with this resurfacing project, we can put back what we had talked about, the 4 lanes. We could do the lane diet section and actually go with 1. But we're going to be designing this in-house. We can design it really quickly. So we're not trying to rush a decision from you guys. We actually want to hear what you have to say, and then we will get the design done in time, and so that we can actually resurface the section and get y'all a nice new road out there. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator for questions and answers.
We will now begin our question and answer portion of the meeting. I will read the questions and comments that have been submitted through the question box, and we will do our best to answer each question. So our first question is, there is a new construction at the north end. How will this affect traffic?
I can kind of answer that. I'm not sure which development we're looking at, but the AADT being what it is right now, for that portion of the roadway is very, very small for a 4-lane road. So you have excess capacity. You don't really get into an issue unless you quadruple the traffic out there, or quadruple the traffic out there. So at this time, that's not. I wouldn't say that would really affect the traffic too much in terms of this project. But I'm not really sure what type of development that is. So I can't answer you all the way, but I can give you at least in terms of the project that should not affect it.
What about speed bumps instead of taking away a lane?
Well, that's a good question. We get that one a lot. So I'll tell you what we've been saying for the last couple of years. We had some initial concerns with emergency vehicles and response times with speed humps. So when you put them on collector roads, especially, and especially this collector road, because your only way to all these neighborhoods is basically this roadway. I mean, y'all know that. Like I kind of call it a cul-de-sac, and what I mean by that, it's one way in. It serves you guys, and that's basically the main that your only way in and out. So we do have some concerns over emergency response time. Now, they have speed bumps are kind of one of those things that you either love them or hate them. So there is a push to kind of look at those and see if that's something that we might want to reevaluate. However, at this time, our policy is not to install speed humps. What we have installed in other areas are raised pedestrian crossings. We did that recently. Our first one that we installed on Collector Road is over kind of close on Harbor Island, close to downtown, where we installed a series of 4 raised pedestrian crossings with RFBs. We're trying those out as a pilot. We're trying to work out the kinks and everything like that. But that would be an option for here as well, with or without the lane diet. So we can accommodate that with lane diet or without. But for right now, our policy is not to do speed humps because of emergency vehicle concerns.
Can we leave the road as a 4-lane road with a bike lane as in Area 4 north of the project? A 1-lane road will be a nightmare during morning and evening rush hour traffic trying to enter and exit Tampa Palms.
Yeah, so I've kind of answered that. I thought some of these questions were done before the presentation. We could do 2 lanes. It would not be, but there would be no bike lane. So the roadway widths are not wide enough to actually accommodate a bike lane as well. But we could do 2, and we can have narrow lanes. It's just going to have extra pavement. I will say when you do striped lanes, narrower lanes, they do work. But they don't work as well as physically narrowing the roadway widths. So that is one concern we have with those. But yes, that is an option. And just to address it again, we are not planning on removing through lanes at the intersections, removing turn lanes at the intersections. Intersections are what cause the majority of your congestion. They have such an outsized role that in congestion that's your main conflict point, and that's where you're going to cause most of your traffic congestion. If you can make efficiency changes at the intersections, you can actually do a lot more on the links towards the intersections, and it doesn't, you don't need to carry that excess capacity up, because at the time, you're basically racing to a stoplight. At that point, you're still waiting, and it's just a matter of how far back your car is from the stoplight. But the intersections can be retimed to allow more vehicles to go through and alleviate that queuing down the road. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Will there be a flashing beacon on Compton Drive by Tampa Palms Elementary for crossing Tampa Palms Boulevard? This is a very difficult place to cross due to visibility.
So as of right now, we don't have it identified from pedestrian volumes. However, that would be a good comment. And that is something that we're looking for. Let us know where y'all have trouble crossing. Sometimes pedestrian volumes are, people don't cross where they want to cross because they don't feel safe crossing there. So rather than us tell you where you want the crosswalks, we want to hear where you think we need them. So let us know on that. That is something that we can definitely look at. And that's, if you'll have any other suggestions for us, that's a great comment. I would love to hear where y'all think we need these crossings.
Are there concerns about a one lane serving such a large population, especially during emergencies, for example, hurricanes?
No, not for emergency evacuation at all, actually, because with this one, you're really not, you're not going through to anything. It's a road that connects to Bruce B. Downs on both sides. So it's like I said, it's kind of like a cul-de-sac in a way. You're really servicing only the population that you have that live adjacent to that roadway. What the hurricane evacuations are really, what controls that are the big highways and that actually serve as evacuation routes. That's where you have issues. Getting in and out of your neighborhood should not be any issue, especially during an evacuation or storm event.
How many meetings were held to solicit input from the affected residents? How many residents attended?
This is the first meeting that we've had specific to this project. We've met. We've had several meetings with with neighborhood people within the neighborhood. They weren't noticed or anything like that. It was just basically going to speak to residents and stuff like that. But what I mean by this is our first meeting to solicit actual input from people on the project itself. But as far as the speeding concerns, we receive those constantly. And that is one of the big things that rose to the surface every time you talk about Tampa Palms Boulevard is the need for traffic calming. So I don't think there's any, I don't think it's controversial to say that there is a need for traffic calming. I think we have data to back that up too with the speeding that we've already recorded. I think the controversy here is really about the method on how we produce that. We feel confident in the fact that what the concept plans show would be the best means of traffic calming, but that might not be what y'all agree with or what y'all want. So that is something that that's what we're trying to look at here. But this is the initial public input meeting for this project.
Will the existing trees remain?
Yes, right now, and I can tell you this right now, we don't have anything programmed right now for any of the roundabouts and stuff like that. If we do at that time, we have to look to see what the existing trees, what will have to be done with the existing trees. I don't expect many to be removed, but we haven't gotten to that level of detail. As far as the resurfacing project that I talked about earlier, we're only going curb to curb. So anything that's in the right of way now will remain. The only issue that we might run into is y'all have a very narrow median that does have some oak trees in it. And we'll have to have an arborist kind of look at that with our full depth reclamation, because unfortunately, because the base is so bad and because we have to go so deep, we're going to be getting into an area where they might have tree roots. So we'll have an arborist look at those, but I don't expect to be removing any trees with our resurfacing project. And in the future, if we do need to remove trees, we can discuss that when we actually get into design of the actual capital project.
How will this affect first responders' response time and navigation around the traffic flow when school drop-off or pickup time or other times that the one lane is busy or full of vehicles?
Like I said, well, for emergency vehicles, we're not expecting much of a difference there. The traffic volumes are light. The school pickup and drop off, the queue lane, if y'all go back to the presentation in the handout, there's a large queue lane that we are providing or we're proposing to provide. So a lot of that area is reserved for queuing vehicles. So I know that's probably the biggest need as far as the capacity. It's not necessarily the capacity for the intersection or the length towards the intersection. Y'all's biggest congestion problem is probably because of school pickup and drop off. And looking at the length of that lane, I was actually really surprised when the consultants went out there and actually measured it and how far back it went. So it's a pretty massive school queue that y'all have. But that is being accommodated. We're not planning on taking out the lane completely. It's meant to serve as a school pickup and drop off lane for the majority, or for whenever it's needed, and then for the other 22 hours a day, it will basically be a protected bike lane, so people can ride through it. But it is a shared lane. It's just that we're not putting through traffic on it. So I'm not concerned about that, and I'm not concerned about the capacity in terms of, because of the existing roadway volumes. You have more than enough room with one lane to accommodate an emergency vehicle to get through to everything.
Were the 2020 numbers calculated during COVID when schools were virtual and people were largely working from home?
The 2020 numbers were calculated based off of traffic counts that we got from the NPO in 2018. So they did queue counts when in 2018 before COVID. So there was, you're seeing what we had pre-COVID. So those numbers are from that. And then to be honest, traffic volume, the 2040 numbers, that they always go up, but I mean, it's really hard to imagine why the numbers here would go up that much, because you're already built out for the most part. So you can't really, that 2040 volume, and COVID's a good example too. More people work from home. It's hard to imagine why you would actually have, in an area that, on a road that services basically the developments on the side of that road, it's hard to imagine that you would actually even see that increase. But even with that increase, we're talking about a road that is half of what would be required for the lane diet. So the volumes just aren't there. The capacity is, there's an excess amount of capacity. I would put it this way too, and this is probably a better way of explaining this. This road was designed and built at a time when this was actually built before the city was annexed, or this portion was annexed into the city. So, and it was designed at that portion. So when they actually do these designs, they're basing it off of a standard typical section that is developed independent of what the roadway is. It's just, what type of road is this? And then Hillsborough County had this standard typical that was 2 lanes in each direction with a certain width median, and then bike trail on one side and stuff like that. So it wasn't really looking at the road individually. It was actually looking at the road as like, what's a typical roadway in this area? Or what should it be? However, if we were to actually look at the traffic volumes that this roadway is experiencing, and if we were to redesign this road and build this road from scratch today, we would build it based off of similar to what we're proposing in our concept. The design that we have is outdated and unneeded. So if we were to do this all together new again, we would be looking at something a lot more similar to what we're proposing than what we have out there. Again, that's just saying what kind of trying to explain I know the thought of losing lane is kind of a hard thing to overcome and to like understand, but that is how we would actually build it if we were to redesign it today.
Explain the transition from protected bike lane to queue lanes for cars and schools. Isn't the end of the day possible peak for children bicycling? Seems the transition could be a real conflict point.
I don't know if anybody from the project team wants to discuss that. the individual, the actual connection. I would like to say that the protected bike lanes also, you don't have to ride on the bike lane. You can still ride on the sidewalk. You can still ride on the trail too. So there are options there as well. But that school queue, that actual trail connection, wouldn't be done with the resurfacing project. It would only be done with the future Complete Streets project. So I don't know if anybody from the project team wants to discuss that.
Hey, Cal. Yeah, I can speak to that. This is Mohammed from the project team here. So the transition between the bike lane and the school queue, that's when we will be utilizing, in the concept anyways, a bike ramp that will allow the bikers to get off safely onto a newly constructed shared use path to allow enough width for pedestrians and cyclists to share the sidewalk during the portion of the school queue. And then similarly, when the school queue ends, there will be another bike lane to get back onto Tampa Palms Boulevard, which will get them back into the system.
Next question, do we have enough bicycle traffic to warrant a dedicated lane?
So I mean, first off, I don't know what exactly the bike traffic is out there, but the bike lane in itself is not, like I said before, the road diet was not specifically meant to provide a bike lane. So it's not necessarily, we're not taking out a roadway lane in order to provide a bike lane. The roadway lane was removed, or was being proposed to be removed in order to provide the traffic calming. It's what you reallocate that space to. And in these areas, your largest bang for your buck, your most efficient way of actually getting of calming traffic, it would be through the removal of that through lane. It's what you do with the rest of that space. Bike lanes take a little bit of bike traffic off the trail, so it was a good use for that space as well. They provide an alternative mode for people who want to get to Publix or to school, things like that, to the Y out there. So there will be a lot of opportunities to use it, but it's not necessarily meant because the bike lanes were there were so many cyclists that we needed to build another lane. That wasn't the point of it.
What crash data has been collected along the study area?
Mohammed, do you want to take that one? You're muted if you're speaking.
How do we get that? Can you guys hear us now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So you guys were asking, sorry to make you repeat the question, but the question was specifically for the crash data that we had?
What
crash data? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What crash data was collected?
We went to the Tampa City Police and produced crash records, and we analyzed the crash records, and there wasn't a whole lot of crashes out there.
Yeah, and so we've got that all documented. The main area here is, predominantly it's the complaints with the speeding, and although you can't necessarily correlate the crashes with a particular reason as to why we're making these improvements. Really one bad accident is more than enough justification to improve the safety in a corridor like this. And you really would not anticipate too many accidents in this sort of corridor. I mean, many of the users are the ones who live in this neighborhood here. That being said, that was the approach that we used, which was pretty typical, going down and getting all the reports that we can, compiling them, and then including them as part of design documentation.
And the majority of the crashes were rear end crashes at the signalization of Bruce B. Downs.
Yeah, and the crash data obviously would not show near misses or anything like that. And it won't show all crashes if TPD was not called out to the scene. So some fender benders and stuff like that would actually not be recorded in that crash data.
Okay, next question. One of the issues with Tampa Palms Boulevard is local flooding in the right lane. When we get the extreme summer downpours, the right lane floods. How do you see this being addressed in your plans? Is sewer work considered?
For the resurfacing project, no. Mohammed, I don't know if y'all had any anything in the actual feasibility report about any flooding there. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the drainage wasn't too bad. What we did was the on-field reviews during a rainy event, just driving around to find any areas of localized drainage. Considering we do have the seasonal high water that's quite high, and again, that's the main reason impacting the base in that area. The only thing I would say is the main areas that we found were pretty obvious. We would have inlets adjacent to a flume, and the flume might be lower than the inlet, so it wouldn't. It's not. It's the hard part was getting to those areas. So improvements are not, or existing conditions aren't too bad, but the proposed improvements in kind won't be too difficult. It's just going to be some regrading and reditching to allow everything to sheet flow properly into the existing system.
Yeah, we have a City of Tampa ponding list too that we do consult for our projects when we do these resurfacing projects. So if there are, knowing that the corridor, the current design of the corridor actually has these shallow swales and stuff like that, we could accommodate some inlet changes if need be to accommodate any kind of, get rid of some of the ponding that they have there. But if you do know of an area that might not be on our list, I would please ask if you could share where that is. And we do have our topographic survey that would back that up too, so we could find it. One other thing on the ponding, let us know if you have any trail ponding as well, because I know on New Tampa Boulevard, that trail ponds a lot because of the turf adjacent to it is actually higher than the trail itself. So there's some ponding issues that we have on that one that we've gone out and tried to remediate against as well. But if you do have some ponding on the trail that you're aware of or sidewalk that you're aware of, please let us know on that one too.
Landscaping of the median often requires a lane closure at times and already causes some traffic. How will this be addressed or handled?
Well, that's a good question. That would have to be handled through the landscaping, and the maintenance of traffic for the landscaping. The bike lane itself they wouldn't be allowed, obviously, to impede the through lane. They would either have to find another place to pull over and actually take out. I'm assuming you mean park vehicles for their equipment. They'd have to find another place to park and then bring their equipment down there, or the bike lane itself would have delineators, but those delineators could actually be moved through and if need be to stage there. But regardless, right now they probably, I'm assuming that they take out a through lane. So whether or not they take out the bike lane, it's kind of the same thing. It's another it is another lane for vehicles, bikes for vehicles. So that would be an option there. But ideally, they would park off site and actually drive their tractors and everything over to the area rather than park right next to the median.
Have you forecasted the travel time between your proposed scheme and the present 4-lane street, keeping the speed limit? Any delays?
Did y'all do any travel time forecasting?
No travel time forecast, but the level of service is A, and we did not see any problems with the traffic going down to 1 lane.
With level of service A, you're generally gonna, see the travel time basically be the same. I would, yeah, I mean, if that's not a bad comment though, if that's something that we might be able to accommodate as well, just to kind of make sure that there isn't any significant change in the travel time.
What would be the level of service of the roads following the road diet?
Hey, just from the last answer.
All right, just one moment. Would the city approve the use of motorized bicycles, skateboards, and scooters and pedestrian sidewalks, knowing that some can reach speeds over 14 miles per hour?
I believe that I'm not sure if that's city ordinance or state law, but I believe that the state law has, well, the state law treats those as vehicles or bikes. They can use those bike lanes. So that's another reason that, the one wheels and things that you might see out there a lot, they would be able to utilize that extra space in the bike lane and not be on the sidewalk. They had another option. But I'm not sure what the state law is on if there's any kind of restriction of electric e-bikes and things like that on the sidewalks. I'll have to get back to you on that one. But if so, I believe there is, just like any bicycle, you're supposed to ride as pedestrian on the sidewalk. So you're not supposed to be traveling at 20 miles an hour on the sidewalk anyway. So but I'll have to look into that. I don't know if anybody else knows offhand what the law is on those.
Why not simply improve the existing multimodal path, for example, existing bike lanes?
Because of the traffic calming. Like I said, the main onus of this is not necessarily for the bike lanes. It's to achieve the goals of the project, which are to calm traffic, to reduce travel speeds for vehicles, to the speed limit, and to also provide multimodal choice by increasing the width of you have a lot less room out there to increase the width of the path than what appears. There's that piece of grass next to the roadway is actually a swale, so there is a purpose to it. So with that in mind, there's not a lot of options to produce a high quality trail through here. You have an 8-foot trail that's minimum width right now, but you're not going to get much that would have something that could accommodate cyclists and people using the motorized e-bikes and scooters and things like that you could with a protected bike lane.
Is it possible to reduce the speed limit to 30 miles per hour?
Yeah, that's a possibility. That's something that I think we will look at, and we can definitely look at that and see if it's something that's warranted for this roadway. I don't think it's a bad idea, so that's something we can definitely look at. That stuff like that is a great comment too. So we'll have it here from the report. But if y'all have support for that, if y'all want to show more support for that, please make sure that y'all email us and stuff like that too.
If there are not a lot of crashes, then why is this such an issue?
Because there is speeding, and speeding is the #1 contributor to vehicular or to crashes and deaths and significant injuries. Just because a crash hasn't happened doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And the one thing that we're trying to control here is speeding. You can't enforce 24 hours a day. Most of the speeding doesn't occur during the 2 peak hour traffic times. It mostly occurs at times when traffic isn't congested. So it's during those times where you have 22 feet of open pavement and no cars on the road, but you might have pedestrians, kids coming home from school, things like that, that we worry about. So that's the reason why we're looking to make our roads safer. And it's a bad idea to only be reactive. We need to be more proactive with our roadway design and have better roadway design that actually fits the context of the area around it.
When you resurface, could you paint narrower lanes and see what it does for calming speeds?
Yeah, we can do that. And that is one of the things that we're looking at is the 10-foot lanes. The thing I will say on that is with resurfacing, our dollars are stretched really thin. So Unfortunately, one of the ways that we have to be reactive is we have to hit the areas that do have the crashes first. So that is something that we look at as far as how we prioritize our projects. The other major way that we prioritize projects is through maintenance needs. And we kind of have an, like when we do our maintenance, we look at the corridors holistically and see what improvements we can make to make the roadways safer. Now, if we were to resurface this roadway without doing the lane diet, it's very hard to program a project when there are greater needs throughout the city. It's the fact that it's like we're kind of in that sweet spot right now where the roadway needs to be worked on, and we have the opportunity to work on it. But yeah, like I said, we want to hear what kind of input y'all have to inform the design of the roadway in the interim condition. Let's say for the resurfacing project. So yeah, that's definitely doable, but it's this is something that we think would be safer, and we want to just see if there's anything that we can do to kind of make our case for it.
Can you beta test the one-lane scheme by blocking off a lane for a week to see how residents react?
We've talked about that in the past. We've actually looked at that at other projects. My main concern with temporary, let's just call them temporary lane diets, in the past has really been if you only do it as an MOT, meaning a maintenance of traffic, you put barrels out, things like that, it's never going to operate the same way as something like a final state. With this one, that's something we can look at because you do have 2 lanes of travel. You do have a median, so you're not really changing anything in the middle there. And if y'all mean to do that in advance of the actual project itself, it would definitely have to be longer than a week because most traffic normalizes after any project. It takes a while for traffic to normalize. Even if we widen an area, people don't know about it until and they'll start using it again. And then people start using it after 3 months as they learn about it. So it would have to be longer than that. And then it would just have to be timed towards the resurfacing project. But I don't know. Let me table that. That's a good comment, and that's something we can discuss internally.
Could you look at inserting a roundabout by City Plaza at the intersection of Tampa Palms Boulevard and Amberley Drive to alleviate congestion in and out of the shopping center?
We have not looked at that intersection. We have looked at, there is another surrounding intersection that we have looked at I think it's Commerce Park in Compton. I believe that's the intersection name. I'll have to check to see if we have anything already analyzed for that intersection to see if there's anything that we can do there. But let me check back with our traffic folks and see if there's something that they've already looked at. And if not, if they can look at that and perform a intersection evaluation there.
Can you add speed sensor signs, especially in front of Childs and Tampa Palms Elementary?
We cannot add speed enforcement signs. We can add dynamic feedback signs. Dynamic feedback signs are the ones that are radar controlled, and they say speed limit is blah, blah, and your speed is, and it has a digital light up message and tells you how fast you're going. That's something that we're looking at as some of our kind of standard treatments for complete streets. One of the issues that we have with that, believe it or not, is the power, because they're solar powered. So we have to kind of figure out where we can put it. If you have a lot of tree canopy, they don't light up, and then sometimes it's hard to get a nearby power source to actually light them up. But that's something that we can kind of look at in the field and see if we can find a location for it.
Are there any statistics on road rage incidents and increased accidents with 2-lane roads?
No, I can tell you. I don't know of anything with road rage incidents, but the right sizing, lane diets, whatever you want to call them, they've done big nationwide studies and over various areas, lots of different types of projects, and they've had a overwhelming success rate from 19 to 47% reduction in total crashes, and even bigger reduction in significant crashes. Roadways operate a lot slower, and when we say that, we don't mean that like you can't drive the speed limit. We mean that it forces people to drive the speed limit. It's one of those things where when we say slower roads, we don't mean that you're going to have to go at 15 miles per hour. We're saying we just want you to drive what the road is posted at, because that's been determined to be the safe driving speed. So, but no, there's a lot of evidence out there, a lot of studies that say that the road dies are very effective and very safe. And the FHWA actually, that's the Federal Highway Administration, actually terms them as a proven safety countermeasure.
What about using lighted speed alert signs and leave Tampa Palms as a 4-lane road?
Yes, that's kind of that's one of the things that we just said. That's the dynamic feedback signs, the same thing. That's the your speed is this, and that's something that we can do. Those work. They work in the location of where they're placed more than they work anywhere else. So they're great for spot treatments. They're not great for the long length. Just like anything else, speed humps are the same way. They work great when you're going over them, then people speed up in between them. So we look for things that can achieve corridor-wide safety, but that is one thing that will work for spot treatments.
Why are you not proposing to repave Compton Drive?
That's just not in the project limits. This roadway is it's not that we're not, and I actually know Compton Drive is in pretty bad shape as well. So we did do a PCR, pavement condition assessment, where we went and assessed every city road out there. So the one thing I will say is all this area has that high seasonal high water, which is like basically your groundwater table is very high in this area. And the base material that was used for this area, by and large, was something that was very popular when this was built, called soil cement, where they basically put cement in the soil that's there, mix it up, and make it into concrete. That type of treatment does not work well with high water tables. And this area, I did a lot of work in Pasco County, has the same issues. That's what we need to do to this road. That's likely what we need to do to Compton Drive, and that's likely what we need to do to New Tampa Boulevard. But we are aware that the poor pavement conditions out there, they are collector roads, so they are on a shorter time frame than some of our local roads for resurfacing. So it's just not part of this project, but that is something that we can look at in the program in the future.
Is it conceivable to just make the lanes more narrow to calm the traffic?
Yes, but it's not as effective. It just isn't. You still, like I said, you still have 22 feet. You still have people pulling out around other vehicles that go past them. It's just not going to be as effective as going down to one lane. But that is certainly an option here, and that's something that we can look at as our preferred alternative. It's just one of those things that that's why we're meeting tonight, to kind of gauge interest in this and to answer any questions that you might have.
As you repave, could you please put a dedicated left turn lane from Tampa Palms Boulevard onto Bella Woods Drive? It is the only turn off Tampa Palms Boulevard without a dedicated left turn lane.
We can look at that with the capital project, which that's what we're talking about now. With the resurfacing, we're just working between curbs, but that is something that we can look at when we do any kind of major capital project here.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, let me say one thing. I have to look at where that intersection is, but I will say one other thing on that. with the, I'll have to look at that to see exactly where the that roadway is. But if we are removing a travel lane as well, we might be able to do a spot treatment there where we kind of move dedicate some area for a left turn lane there instead of the right turn or the buffered bike lane. That might be something where in that area, just for the stretch of the left turn lane, we could have a sharrow or something like that too. So if we do remove a lane, that would actually make that a little bit more, we could actually do that with the resurfacing project, is what I'm trying to say. So if when we do the resurfacing project, if we get a lot of good feedback about the one lane option, then that might be an option there too.
And Cal, this is the project team. And another option we could do there, since we've got the median width, is just to mirror what's on the other side. I actually think this is a great suggestion there. This would be a good location to just mess with the median there to get that lane width, because we have that full width median there to be able to grow a left turn lane at that intersection. I think that would be doable even without road dieting.
Okay, and that's good to know. So that okay, I got you. That's good to know. So yeah, we'll definitely look into that. Good suggestion.
Okay. How is reducing to one lane going to reduce speed? In fact, it may increase speed during rush hours.
Well, I don't see how it would increase speed during rush hour, but the one lane basically the front car controls. So you don't have it calms traffic by narrowing the lane. One, you can physically narrow the lane with the delineators too. So basically, the buffered bike lane would have delineators. So it's more than just a traffic stripe for narrowing. It actually has a vertical element to it. The front car controls, the slower speed controls. So if there's someone in front, you don't have anybody weaving in and out of traffic to get around other people. And that's usually the case for speeding. You don't have that issue. And it's not just speeds that we're looking to control, it's also behaviors with the traffic. Traffic calming includes calming bad driving behaviors like weaving in and out of traffic, like split-second decisions to get around other stalled or stopped vehicles, things like that. That's the kind of stuff that leads to rear-end crashes and side swipes. That multiple threat thing that I showed y'all for the crosswalks. So it's more than just speeds, but one-lane roadways operate slower than there's less speeding on those, I should say, than multi-lane roadways. I don't see how a one-lane roadway would operate faster than a two-lane roadway. That's just not how they operate.
The landscaping company that services Tampa Palms Boulevard has their trucks using one lane almost every day to do their work. How can they do that with only one lane? Use the bike lane?
Yeah, I addressed that before, but yes, ideally they would park off-site and not. There are other areas where they could park and pull off the roadway. If they did not do that, they would they could take over the bike lane as well. But that would be the best solution there.
How will a road diet affect traffic on Bruce B. Downs?
It would. The road.
Apologize. There's a second part to that just came in. Will it cause people to revert to using Bruce B. Downs versus Tampa Palms?
No, okay. So I don't think anybody's using Tampa Palms to get around Bruce B. Downs. I don't see you're talking. That would be like through traffic, not necessarily neighborhood traffic. It's a U-shaped roadway that intersects Bruce B. Downs within half a mile. There's two intersections for Bruce B. Downs, and that's really the only other access y'all have besides Compton. So I can't imagine someone jumping onto Tampa Palms Boulevard to get around to Bruce B. Downs. But if they did do that, as far as a traffic calming measure, that would actually reduce that, because if it's not as attractive to speed down Tampa Palms Boulevard to get around one of the intersections or so, then that would be it. I can't imagine anybody doing that. It seems like a very circuitous route, and I would not imagine that that would be alleviate any time off your trip going to Bruce B. Downs. I don't know if that's what you were asking. That's what I'm assuming, but otherwise, the other things, if we were to reduce the lanes, you're not going to see any backups on Bruce B. Downs or anything like that. The intersections themselves will remain the same. So when you go through and actually are at the intersection of Bruce B. Downs and Tampa Palms Boulevard, that intersection is going to look like what it does today. When you do a roadway design, that node, that intersection, that's what's controlling how many lanes you have there is really where you have your efficiency. So you can do intersection widening where you have extra lanes in each direction that then merge down. If you can add turn lanes at intersection, that helps alleviate traffic. That's the kind of stuff that works really well. But you don't need, the only thing that you get from having 2 lanes further back past the intersection is that when a car is waiting at the intersection, instead of waiting in 1 or 2 lanes, you just take that queue length, that's the amount of cars that are waiting, and spread it out over 1 lane. So it doesn't have any effect on it. It's just the queue goes further back. In some areas where we've looked at these, the queue length itself was a concern because we were worried about people like going into the neighborhood to get around the traffic signal because they see the queue is further back than what they're used to. If they don't have 2 lanes to stack in, they only have 1 lane to stack in, that makes the car stack further back. So we do worry about that. In this area, we don't have any concerns about that because you don't have any throughput. You don't have a neighborhood that connects to Bruce B. Downs. Bruce B. Downs and Tampa Palms Boulevard is the only intersection that you'll have. So there is no place to cut through to bypass the intersection and get around. So on that, like basically long answer short, it's not going to affect the operations of Bruce B. Downs.
Is the $3 million enough money to implement this Complete Streets project or just resurfacing?
No, that's for resurfacing. The roundabouts, I don't know if they have a cost in there. Mohammed, you can speak up on that, but I have some roundabout projects I have recent cost on if we don't have it in there.
Yeah, we haven't done a cost analysis for the roundabout, but from previous projects, a larger roundabout could cost close to, $2 million if you incorporate the landscaping. For the one that we're proposing on Compton on the south side, especially since it's going to be a compact roundabout, I wouldn't assume that to be any larger than $1 million, and a quarter.
Yeah, that's about in line with what I have. We had a recent project on 34th Street that we implemented 3 roundabouts, and we had one that's in design where we have preliminary costs. We generally get cheaper costs than what other agencies have, but our roundabouts run from like $650 to $950. So if we did roundabouts at those same intersections right there, that's close. Let's just say close to like 1.75 million. The resurfacing, the money for the resurfacing is just enough to do the resurfacing. It's not enough to do any of the improvements to the sidewalk, things like that. That's a whole nother issue that we don't have funding for right now. But the roadway pavement is in such bad shape that the resurfacing, the money that we have allocated is just really for the full depth reclamation and the striping, associated striping that we need to complete the project. There's no cost difference in whether we do the 1 lane option, the lane divided option, or the 2 lane option. The costs are all the same, or it's negligible. The cost difference is really not that big of a deal. You pay for striping basically by mile, and it's going to be the difference would be minuscule compared to the overall cost of the resurfacing. Any more questions?
I apologize, I was on mute. Do you plan on any other community meetings for the project plan timeline to facilitate residents' comments?
Yeah, so right now for this effort before January, no. So the preliminary engineering report, we don't have anything scoped for them to produce any other presentations and stuff like that. Before we go out for our resurfacing project, we will be doing some more community engagement. But event or not, I'm more than happy to talk to, come to any neighborhood meetings, anything like that that y'all want to have. I make myself available for y'all. Just let me know. Try to get me in advance so I have time to plan for it. And then before we do implement anything on the resurfacing, we want to kind of come out there and meet with y'all to discuss our options for that too. So this is, like I said, this is just the beginning. Before anything with this project, the Tampa Palms Complete Street Project gets programmed, this is just the first step. When we go to design, we'll be doing a whole another series of meetings and stuff like that. But before we even like finalize any kind of report, we just kind of want to gauge community interest in this, see if there's anything. I think a lot of this stuff, it's not as self-explanatory as it seems. A lot of people, they might not know some of the things about traffic calming and lane diets and stuff like that. So we try to get the word out for that. But yeah, we'll definitely be doing more meetings, and I'm more than happy to meet with anybody on this project or talk directly with people too. So this is just the beginning.
I just wanted to mention there are questions still coming in. We are unable to accommodate those who are raising their hand to speak. So if you do have a question, please enter it in the question box on the side. The next question is, I do not understand why dedicated bike lanes are being proposed when there's an 8-foot shared use bike path along Tampa Palms Boulevard. The bike lanes added in Tampa Palms Area 4 in 2012. I apologize. It resulted in little use of the bike lanes and unsightly bike lane signage. Please clarify this.
So the bike lanes that we currently have on the north, it's a really hard road to describe, but that portion that we've already done in 2013, it's northeast of Evansburg to Bruce B. Downs. That portion, or I guess the northwest portion of the circle, that portion, the bike lanes are very narrow. Bike lanes are substandard in some locations. They're 4 feet wide and maximum. It would be very. I'm not surprised that they aren't utilized that much. There's a big push. You have to think about, would you use that infrastructure? It's about designing bike lanes that actually work from people of all walks of life and all abilities and all comfort levels. It's not necessarily about designing bike lanes for people that would feel comfortable on a 4-foot striped bike lane next to 2 lanes of traffic in a suburban area. The other thing I would add on that is that portion was done in 2013. We still receive a ton of requests for traffic calming in that area. So I think it's a good point to make that area. If you want to know how 2 10-foot lanes and narrow lanes and a bike lane would perform, go out to that area and see if they have a lot of traffic, speeding and things like that. And if you feel safe on those roadways while you're walking or biking, that portion right there is exactly what we would get with a 2-lane narrow section. So I'm glad that was brought up, because we already kind of have our test pilot right there, and what we receive with a 2-lane narrow section.
Have there ever been any documented traffic fatalities on Tampa Palms Boulevard?
I can defer to Muhammad, but I don't believe so. But he might know of some.
We did not see any fatalities in the crash reports that we had.
I didn't think so. I know there's some other roadways up there that we've had fatalities on, but I guess not in this area.
Is speed reduction the only reason for this project? It seems like a large investment for a low traffic accident location. What other methods were considered aside from road diet?
Well, no, it's not the only. Well, first off, it's not the only reason for the road diet. The speed reduction is not. The bike lanes are a very compelling reason to where you have excess road capacity that is needed for vehicular traffic. Then it's what you want to do around that area, and what other amenities you can provide to the people to serve the people that use the roadway and the corridor. So it wasn't the only one, but it's not the only reason for the lane diet in general. However, yeah, the other methods of traffic calming don't really need to have a concept. They're pretty self-explanatory. It's just narrow lanes. It's just not they're not going to be as effective. The other things that we're looking at with the roundabouts, that in itself will provide some speed control and some traffic calming at the roundabout. But the reason why the roundabouts are appealing is more because now a stop sign will provide the same amount of speed control as a roundabout. It's as safe as a roundabout. However, it's not as operationally efficient as a roundabout. So when we look at that, we're trying to calm traffic. We're not trying to stop it and slow it down to a crawl. We just want people to travel the speed limit. So when you get to it with 2 lanes, it's just there's not a lot you can do with the exception of narrowing lanes in the standard treatments that you would see out there. But there's not really much you can do. The real change what really helps out for traffic calming, the biggest thing that we could do to actually calm traffic here is to remove that travel lane and only go with 1 lane option there. But like I said, that we have other options, they're just not going to be as effective.
And Cal, if I can chime in here for a little bit, just further elaborating on that question itself, first and foremost, the pavement in the area is in terrible condition, right? And coming in here with the pavement reclamation and resurfacing to be able to fix these roads, almost first and foremost to correct that, and taking that opportunity to increase the safety where possible in those efforts really is a good idea. With any resurfacing project that we do, it's an opportunity to increase safety, especially for the school kids. You've got these, both Lawton Childs and Tampa Palms Elementary. So a lot of these are the concept studies or concept alternatives that we're proposing in the report. And by all means, we can, we'll have different alternatives shown aside from the road dieting itself. But, having those RFB locations and proposed roundabouts, these are all just, again, safety improvements on top of correcting the failing base of the road that's already out there.
Yeah, it's building back better, and you just reminded me of something else too. Right now, you do have failing pavement, you do have sections of failing pavement, and you do have potholes, things that aren't comfortable driving over, and stuff like that. When that pavement gets rehabilitated, traffic speeds are not going to go down. That's the other thing too. It's when you have new pavement, you have to. That's also people drive faster on their pavement when they don't have potholes and things like that slow them down.
The traffic studies do not reflect the volume of traffic at rush hours. A single lane would cause tremendous backups at prime travel times. What other options are available?
The traffic studies do reflect the traffic volumes at rush hour at the intersections. So your level of service there would not be affected because it's the same level of service that we're projecting right now because we're not doing anything at the intersections. So and then along the roadway itself, the traffic volumes are the same. So that's your AADT. That is the rush hour traffic. It's the average annual daily traffic, not rush hour or anything like that. That is what you experience per day. So that is rush hour traffic. So that is not a truthful statement.
Has the intersection of Tampa Palms and Palm Springs been looked into for methods to improve traffic safety and pedestrian safety? Then the second part of that is I feel that there is a high number of accidents at this intersection and is heavily used by students and by the general public.
Is that one of the intersections? I couldn't remember. I didn't hear the actual.
No, that's outside the project limits from Evansburg to Bruce B. Down. Not part of this project study.
No, it's not. But okay, so I'll take that comment though, and I can get back to that person, and we'll get that to our traffic studies team. So things like this, a lot of times when we do these public meetings for specific projects, we do get other complaints or concerns from surrounding area. So anytime we get that, just we'll take that and get back out, reach back out to you with what we can do there too. So thanks for bringing that up.
I apologize. Going through the rest of the questions to make sure we've, let's see. And I just want to mention too that if your question or comment was not addressed specifically during this presentation, they will be addressed after the presentation. We have we're documenting all of the comments and the questions that are coming in.
While we're waiting for the next question, I would like to reiterate, if y'all could, we find it really helpful when people let us know what what they want to see most out of the project. So if there is anything, your main concern, your main, what you want to see out of this project, we want to know what we're trying to fix or what the issues are out there. Because as much as we can study a roadway, y'all are the ones that are driving it every day and living off it, and y'all live off the road, y'all know what happens there. So we find that input valuable. So yeah, anything that y'all can add to it, and things like if y'all know of areas of concern outside of the project limits, let us know that too. So I do want to kind of reiterate that.
There was a question, why not mimic area 4 in the northwest corner? This is already working and the speed limit is already 35 miles per hour. The current bike lane is not 4 feet wide, but it works.
Which one is this? I think I addressed that earlier. We still get speeding complaints on that roadway, so I wouldn't necessarily say that it works as well as other methods would. And the bike lanes are not 4 feet wide, but per standard, our minimum bike lane is 4 feet wide. So those might be minimum width, but they're right at 20. There's 24 feet of roadway there, and I know there's some areas in this corridor that, although they were designed for 24, we have the topo survey looking at it, and we do not have 24. This whole area that we're looking at now was supposed to be 24 feet wide, and it's more like 22 to 24 ranges between that. So there's already some issues here trying to get a bike lane, a minimum width bike lane in there. But just to add to that last one, I guess just to kind of put a button on that, we don't have enough space to do a 4-foot bike lane. We can still narrow the lanes. So even if we go with a 4-lane section, we would still propose narrower through lanes just because it's better than nothing as far as traffic calming, but it's not as effective as other measures. So.
I do know that someone had asked, and I'm trying to find the specific question about moving forward. How, if there are questions that they have moving forward, how would they be able to ask those questions?
Email our project manager, Ben Money. That would be the best way to go about it. We'll have his email up on the website. We're trying to create an email address specific for this project too, as well, I should say, and that will be available on the website as well. So we'll get with y'all. That right now the best way is to email Ben Money, but in the future we'll be putting more stuff on the website.
Okay. How about just resurfacing the existing Tampa Palms Boulevard as well as Amberley Boulevard and use the rest of revenue to produce roundabouts?
We don't have rest of revenue. It's our budget right now. So our dedicated budget source right now is gas tax and multimodal fees. We average about $12 million a year in those two items. Our gas tax continuously goes down. It has been raised since 1992, I believe, and it's charged cent per gallon, not a percentage of a gallon. So you don't get charged like 7% or anything like that. You get charged a cent, like a number of cents per gallon. The inflationary value of that tax has gone down to where we have basically a third of what the purchasing power of what we were getting in 1992. So that's why we're trying to stay as nimble as possible. And this project, even the resurfacing, was not programmed outside of surtax. So the fact that we got surtax or some money from the mayor and Councilman Vieira, they wanted this prioritized, and this is something that we see as a priority here. The fact that we were able to take ARPA money, our American Rescue Plan money, basically that money was something that was not anticipated. So that's why we're programming this one. The roundabouts themselves would have to be, would probably more be something where we go after grant funding or something like that. It's based off of a operational or safety grant.
How would it work if a lane were cut out on each side of Ebensburg Drive coming from the area of Tampa Palms Boulevard? There would have to be a merge from 2 lanes to 1?
Yes, that's correct. We would end up merging down, merging down or opening up an extra lane, depending on which direction you would go at that location.
The bike score for Tampa Palms is about 55 now. What might the score rise to?
I don't know. I'm not sure what is that. Do we know where that bike score is coming from?
There is a website that's here, walkscore.com, and that's something that we can follow up with after the meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they do the metrics there. Yeah, I'm not sure what that would be raised to. I don't think that's anything that we produce or have a input in saying.
Let's see, just going through one really quick. Being that we don't have the funds for additional changes, just the resurfacing, will adoptions for these changes inevitably push back the timeline for resurfacing?
No, the resurfacing for the project limits that I showed, which is like the sub, it's kind of south from Bruceby Downs to Bruceby Downs, like the side where Compton Drive goes to the middle of it. That's already programmed for 22. So that's going to happen in 22. what we put down on top of it, what striping, we can work that out over the next couple of months or half a year or so before we actually need to commit to something. But that's going to happen regardless. Right now, we don't have money for resurfacing for the other portion from Bruceby Downs to Ebensburg, but that we'll try to program that as soon as possible when funds become available. So we don't have this project. Everything that we're talking about on the project itself, like I said, is not funded. The only thing that we have funded is literally rehabilitating the pavement, but rehabilitating the pavement gives us an option to change the actual striping on top of the pavement. So what we would be looking at would be kind of like, we wouldn't do anything with the roundabouts. The roundabouts would not be programmed, but what we could do if, this is something that we feel is worthwhile, is to do the lane diet on it and actually we can just restripe the pavement without the outside lane and just do the inside lanes and have the buffered bike lane, or what they termed as quick build, on there. But we wouldn't have all the new sidewalk. We're not going to do anything with the roundabouts, anything like that. All the other project improvements will still have to be programmed at a later time.
I don't know, Cal, if you want to reiterate moving forward as far as community involvement and engaging the community after this meeting. If you could just address that again, what other sorts of public involvement will be involved with this project?
Yeah, well, first, the first things first. If we can, I don't know if the project team has dedicated a deadline for comment, not a deadline, but like a time to get comments in based off of this initial public meeting. But if we could have the public focus on getting comments in, just for their initial thoughts, their initial comments regarding the project, that would be beneficial to us for how we proceed forward. And then the city itself would be taking those comments to inform the design of the resurfacing project. But the city will develop a plan for public input separate from this actual project. Anything that we do for the major project would be done through the actual design of the roundabouts, or the design of some of the other things that we're looking at. So basically, we'll update the websites. We'll let the neighborhood associations know when we'll be developing any more public input opportunities or meetings. But the big thing is, this is not, you don't need to have a meeting to have comments. Like I said, I'd be happy to attend any of the neighborhood meetings. I'd be happy to hear from you guys directly. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know what your concerns are. If you have questions, we can answer that at any time. It doesn't need to be at a meeting, but we'll develop a plan to let y'all know when there will be more opportunities to go over some of the plans and stuff like that.
Well, and again, as Cal mentioned, if your question was not answered here, we'll be responding to all of the posted questions and comments. And please feel free to reach out to us by phone or email after the meeting. The information should be available there on your screen, and is also available in the fact sheet that was mailed to you along with the meeting invitation. I don't know if Cal, if you have any additional comments.
No, just to say thank y'all. I know, you'll have a good associations out there. You'll have a lot of good volunteers and dedicated people who contact and kind of act as y'all's representatives a lot. You'll have a very good council member who is very involved with the neighborhood and stuff like that. So we do hear a lot from his office, and I just really appreciate. The worst thing in the world is when you do a project. For us, is when we do a project and we don't get any attendance or any controversy. We want people to be engaged, and to have a group of people that is actually engaged it's a good thing. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all coming out and spending your time when you don't have to. So I know y'all care, and we do too, and we want to see what's best for the neighborhood out there. So thank you all.
All right, thank you so much for joining us this evening.